So hello and welcome everyone. In today's video, we'll be looking at and comparing 3 different delay and reverb effect modules. In my rack, I currently have the Mimeophon by Make Noise, the Ghost by Endorphins, as well as the Effexx RT1701 by Radical Technologies. And I find it quite interesting just how different the workflow and sonic results between these delay modules are. Since these delays are so different, I want to talk about their workflow, sonic results, and pros and cons of each, helping you decide which of these 3 quote-unquote archetypes of delay might fit your setup best. Sounds good? Well, let's get right into it. Let's start with the Mimeophon. The Mimeophon is quite unique as a delay, as it uses zones to set up its different delay times. Each zone has a different minimum and maximum delay time that you can select using the rate knob. What is particularly interesting about the Mimeophon is that repeats in the smaller zones are also written into the larger zones, and as the manual states, larger zones will often unearth sounds from seconds or even minutes ago. As you can hear, changing the rate doesn't change the pitch of the delays, however using the micro input here will change the pitch. Because the Mimeophon has no shift functions or button combos that you need to press in order to control its parameters, it really embodies the idea of using an effect as an instrument. This of course makes it easy to play and interact with the module live, which I will show you in some of the later patches. What it also helps you with is the fine-tuning of your delay settings, where small changes can have quite a big impact. So with the Mimeophon and other modules like this, to keep the playability high, certain functions have less parameters to control, as we can see here with the reverb, where there's only 2 knobs to change how the reverb sounds. Very often, modules like the Mimeophon have 1 function per knob, but they also have CV control over basically all of their different inputs. This means that these modules are really reacting quite nicely to heavy modulation, as you can see in this patch, where I'm changing every parameter every time the synthesizer is triggered. So in a nutshell, if you're looking to perform your effects like instruments, you should look at modules like the Mimeophon. Check that you have CV inputs and knobs for all main functions, and that there are no hidden settings. It should be clear what the module is doing just by looking at it. The trade-off is of course that the module might have less parameters to adjust, as you have seen in the examples. Next up, let's talk about the Ghost by Endorphins. The Ghost has a delay and a reverb, but it also has distortion, sidechaining, a filter with resonance control, as well as a toggle in which you can change the order of these effects. The Ghost has quite a few features, which means that also most of the knobs have 2 functions. One that engages when you turn the knobs, and another when you're holding shift. As you can probably tell, having each knob perform a main function and a shift function, you can cram much more functionality into the same HP compared to, say, a more performative module. So if I had to categorize it, I would view the Ghost as being more of a workhorse than an instrument. Because obviously you can fine-tune a lot of different settings on the Ghost, but just by looking at the panel, it might be a bit unclear what the values are for a given parameter at any point in time. This difference is probably most pronounced when looking at the Karplus strong type sounds you can get out of the Ghost compared to the Mimeophon. As you can hear, the Ghost has much more sound flavors in its Karplus strong setup, as it can cram much more functions into the same amount of HP. Same concept, the Ghost actually gives you a few more parameters to adjust your reverb with compared to the Mimeophon. In the reverb section you can control the dry-wet signal, the amount of tail of the reverb, the pre-delay, you can freeze the reverb, set it to reverse, and use a shift function to have some tonal control over the highs and lows of the reverb. So let's talk about the Ghost as a workhorse effect for a second. For me, the Ghost is an automatic first go-to effect for all my synth voice When I get a patch going, I often just want some delay, reverb, and some tone shaping possibilities, and the Ghost provides it all. I use the Ghost less for jamming like in Mimeophon, but due to its versatility and ease of use, it's my go-to when I don't really have any specific ideas for the effect already in mind. And this is true not only for my dance music, but also for my more experimental sound designs. Lastly, let's talk about the RT from Radical Technologies. On a basic level, this effects module has 2 different effects units that you can set to any of 8 different algorithms. You can set the routing of these 2 effects, for example, to be in parallel, in series, or in a feedback loop. And it has a reverb section as well as a filter. The twist of this module is that you have a ton of different algorithms and a ton of different ways of fine-tuning each effect, but instead of being able to CV modulate each parameter, you can save different presets and have CV control over which presets are being selected. You can also interpolate between different presets. So what this means that for this module, the workflow is actually quite different than for the other 2. You're more interested in fine-tuning your effects first and then creatively moving between presets when you want to perform. As mentioned, the biggest selling point of this module is that it can interpolate between different, often finely tuned presets. And each preset can have a different algorithm or routing type or filter applied to it. So in the following examples, I'm using different CV types to select the presets, from random sample and holds to envelopes to LFOs to manual control, to kind of showcase the different sonic possibilities with this module. So why have I included this module in this list of 3? Well, for one, if Mimeophon is like a very performative module and the Ghost is somewhere in the middle between performativity and functionality, RT has the highest number of sound shaping capabilities of the 3. But it loses out in jammability. Just like many other preset-based Eurorack modules, quite often the position of the knobs is not very indicative of what's actually going on. Having very little CV inputs, this module feels more like a studio effect rather than a Eurorack module. In a way, the RT is on the other end of the performativity to function spectrum. Lots of functions, lots of algorithms, but very little way of using it intuitively. Being based on algorithms, you can set up a chorus, flanger, or phaser quicker than on the Ghost or Mimeophon. You have more sonic control, but don't expect me to ever jam with this module live, apart from using preset morphing. So in the end, what's the takeaway for this video? The video started as a means to compare 3 different effect modules, but I think we can learn a bit more than that. What I really wanted to get across is that there's a continuum between performability and functionality for Eurorack modules. Being at either end of the spectrum is neither good nor bad, but it is important for you to consider how a new module can integrate or challenge your workflow. I've taken 3 effect modules as a starting point here, but this is of course also true for sequencers, mixers, synth voices and so on. So when deciding on your first or next purchase, do not only consider the signature sounds or features, but also the workflow and playability. That is all for today. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.